Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Dynasty Football Strategist, and I am your breaking news source as well as the Dynasty implications behind said breaking news. In today's video, Cooper Kupp is listed as an off-season standout. We're going to go over his career finishes, his injury history, look at historical data for receivers aged 21 through 40, look at the Rams 2023 targets per game and target share, as well as Cooper Kupp's historical target share, then look at league leading target shares and where Cooper Kupp ranks here, as well as where we project him to be at age 31. Is he a wide receiver 1, 2, or worse? Let's get right into the video. So in an article written by Keith Hernandez of Rotoballer, Cooper Kupp listed as off-season standout. ESPN's Sarah Barshop lists Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp as one of the team's most surprising off-season standouts, which even she admits is odd. Kupp, who was the 2021 receiving Triple Crown winner, has played through significant injuries in each of the past two seasons. He finished 2023 with 59 catches for 737 yards and 5 touchdowns, his fewest receiving yards since 2018 when he played in only 8 games. However, Kupp is healthy this offseason, and it showed on the practice field. Head coach Sean McVay said during team activities he doesn't think anyone really understands the amount of things Kupp was working through last season with his injury, and that the receiver has been able to build his body from the ground up. Fantasy managers shouldn't be expecting the 21 season of Kupp anymore, especially with Puka Nacua on the field, but if he's healthy, he can still deliver value as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 in 2024. Let's see if we end up agreeing with this after we delve through all of the data. So looking at the 2023 season, in the beginning of the season, obviously Cooper Kupp was out, which really gave Puka Nacua a big opportunity to step up and become the number 1 wide receiver. It was an open room. Then as Cooper Kupp came back, he did have flashes of elite wide receiver 1 production in a couple weeks. He just dealt with a lot of injuries, really, and it can really be expected from somebody that's 30-plus years old, especially when they've dealt with injuries sort of throughout their entire career. So let's look at Cooper's career finishes and injury history. Looking at Kupp's profile, he's 31 years old and going into his 8th season. He's 6'2", 207 pounds, and is usually a slot receiver, but can definitely play motion Z as well in this offense, and X, but you prefer him to be in the slot and as a motion Z. In 2017, which was his rookie year, he played in 15 games and finished with 175.9 points, which was good for wide receiver 24 overall, the last wide receiver 2. In his second year, he was only able to play in half the games due to injury, and he finished as the wide receiver 51. He was definitely on pace to outscore his year 1 season, though, especially in the touchdown department, so things were looking up for him. Then he really did break out in his third year. He played all 16 games, finished with 267.5 points, and finished as the wide receiver 5 overall, with a 94 for 1161 and 10 season. Then in the next year, he was only able to play in 15 games, most of the season, but still. He did have a little bit of a down year, though. He finished as the wide receiver 26, so a high-end 3, finishing with 92 catches for 974 yards and only 3 touchdowns. So it looks like touchdown regression really got him for the most part that year. But then we move on to the next season. Oh my goodness, look at this. He played in 17 games, finished with 439.5 points as the wide receiver 1 Triple Crown winner. He had 145 catches for 1,947 yards and 16 touchdowns. Otherworldly production. That was age 28, though, and as we progressed to 2022, he was only able to play in 9 games due to injury. He did finish as the wide receiver 23, which is really impressive. He was on pace to have another monster season. He finished with 75 catches for 812 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then he followed that up with another injury-riddled season in 2023. He only played in 12 games, was injured multiple times throughout the season, and finished as the wide receiver 40 with 59 catches for 737 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he played almost the whole season his first year, played half the games in his second year, whole season in 2019, almost all season in 20, the entire season in 21, and then has had 2 straight injury-riddled years. Now he's age 31. Really, I don't know if we can expect him to play an entire season anymore. Anything can happen, and you can't predict injuries. It's just looking like a trend is starting to form here. So as we said, Cooper Kupp is 31 years old, going into his 8th season. When we look at the historical data, and this data set is comprised of wide receivers who played 8+ games from 2000 through 2020, it's the best data set that I could find. As you can see, it's sorted from age 21 all the way down to age 40. By the way, the age 40 season was Jerry Rice, so don't get any crazy expectations. He is the GOAT. We can see on the left-hand side that it shows the number of wide receiver 1 seasons by age, as well as the percentage of total wide receiver 1 seasons. Then in the second, it shows the number of wide receiver 2 seasons, as well as the percentage of wide receiver 2 seasons. So, as you can see, from age 21, it steadily ramps up until it reaches a peak at age 26, and that goes for both. Then you see a steady decrease as you get older, all the way until you get to age 40. And once again, that was Jerry Rice. Cooper Kupp is really good. He's not Jerry Rice. So we see that Cooper Kupp is currently age 31. So according to this historical data, there have been 14 wide receivers out of all of these players that have been able to do this. Then, if we look to the right, there have been 17 of all of these wide receivers that have been able to reach a wide receiver 2 season. That's really not giving him a fantastic outlook, to be honest with you. And especially in the future after this, it's looking really bad. This is looking like the last chance he has really to have one of these types of seasons. With that being said, let's get into the 2023 target rates per game, as well as Cooper Kupp's career target rate per game. Now we're looking at targets per game for, first of all, the 2023 Rams, and then also Cooper Kupp's career. To be fair to him, he did miss some time, so we don't want to look at total targets. That's not fair. We want to look at a per game basis. That's what matters here. So, as you can see, to no surprise, Puka Nacua led the Rams with a 9.41 targets per game. Kupp, however, was second, and by a good margin, with 7.92. So the difference of that is really less than 2 full targets per game. So not crazy, but there's definitely a distinction here between Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Then you see that it goes down to Tyler Higbee with 4.67, Tutu Atwell with 4.9, Kyren Williams with 4, Darrell Henderson with 3.5, and Van Jefferson with 3. So as you can see, the top 2 receivers in this offense garner way more targets than anyone else. And it really shouldn't surprise you because it's been that way for a long time. If you remember back in the day when Kupp and Robert Woods were receiving for them, it was the exact same thing. You'd have generally Cooper Kupp being the wide receiver 1, and then you'd have breakout games here and there from Robert Woods. So then we look at Cooper Kupp's career targets per game. In 2017, he had 6.27. In 2018, he had 6.88. In 2019, he had 8.38. In 2020, he had 8.27. In 2021, he reached his peak of 11.24, which is astronomical. Then in 2022, it went down just a little bit to 10.89, and it really went down this year with 7.92. There were some factors that might have come into play, as he did deal with injuries throughout the year, so it could have hampered his ability to get open, therefore leading to a decreased target share, as well as obviously Puka Nacua stepping up. And then some of those games, Matt Stafford was out, like against Dallas, for instance, he was injured, and he did miss most of that game and then another game after that. So it definitely affected these stats, but to be fair, it affected both of them too, because neither one of them was able to do much with nobody being able to throw them the ball. So before we can really conclude whether we think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 again, let's look at what it takes generally to be a wide receiver 1. So in general, you want to have at least a 20% targets per route run rate. This assesses your efficiency as well as your role in the offense. So let's look at some of the season leaders to the right here. Tyreek Hill is well above the rest of the pack. Then we have Adams, Diggs, St. Brown, Allen, Waddle, Lamb, Nacua, his teammate, A.J. Brown, Pittman, Olave, Jefferson, Hopkins, Rashee Rice, Douglas, Collins, Evans, Garrett Wilson, and finally Cooper Kupp. Looking at this, there are 18 wide receivers that finished above him, at least through week 16 of this past year. That's what this data set represents. Essentially the whole season. There was just one more week at the very end. Another thing to remember here is that we're looking at their targets per route run. It's not a measure of how many total targets they got. It's just how efficient they were in gaining and garnering targets here. So there were 18 above Cooper Kupp. That puts him in terms of targets per route run among wide receiver 1 through 2. That would put him, if this was in terms of fantasy points, as a low-end wide receiver 2, at least in the rate in which he's targeted per route. Now, injuries could have something to do with that. He was injured multiple times throughout the year, and Matt Stafford was injured in half of one game he played and then the entire next game. So that's really 1.5 lost games, and it really hurt Puka Nacua too. So it's not just a hit on Cooper Kupp. Then when you look at his career targets per game, it was steadily climbing up until it reached that peak in 2021, and then it's been decreasing ever since. As well as his injury history, he's dealt with quite a few injuries the past 2 years. I really don't think that we can project him to, first of all, stay healthy the entire season, and then also increase in his targets per game and targets per route run as well. So based on all of this, where do I think he'll rank? I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2. The Rams love to pass the ball. Sean McVay loves him. He's been Matt Stafford's most trusted target for the longest time. Now, Cooper Kupp is being overtaken by Puka Nacua, and that's really the only reason why I don't think he'll be a wide receiver 1 this year. There's simply not enough passing volume for both of them to be wide receiver 1s, I don't think. Although I could be surprised, it is Sean McVay. He is an offensive genius. I just think based on his injury history, projecting him to probably miss a couple games, along with his steady decrease in targets per game, it's much less likely that he's going to be able to prop himself up to be a wide receiver 1. And especially with that targets per route run rate, he's more than likely to be a wide receiver 2. And this concludes our Cooper Kupp breakdown and where I project him to be in 2024. What do you think? Do you think he's a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, worse than that? Let me know in the comment section, and let me know why. Let's get some discourse going. Please remember that I am your breaking news source, as well as your guide as to the fantasy ramifications of these news breakdowns. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me if you liked and subscribed this video. Please have a fantastic day.